Welcome back to the Absolutely Epic Early Week Podcast. I'm your host, Dean. It's 7904. If you want to get all technical on me, it is Week 5. We're at the quarter pole, 4 weeks down. Well, I guess 17 to go. So quarters probably at the appropriate math if you want to get all technical on me. Usual suspects are back, leading off. It's we got a guy, pretty good OBP, a pretty good on-base percentage. He's already pumped about his Dodgers getting in the playoffs, or I guess moving on, advancing and winning the division. It's one BobbyFi. Bobby, I know it's not a baseball podcast, so we talked about it pre-show. Bobby, how's your night doing?
Hey, tonight it's all about the Dodgers for me until we have the show. I'm excited. We've got the division finally. This team is too talented. Hopefully can run away with this National League, get right back where we belong in the World Series. But on the football realm, good week, profitable week. Not nearly as good as it should have been, which is how I felt about every week, because every score you put up is like a score that would have won every tournament 2 years ago. So right now, it's the same thing that we're looking towards next week. It's not about making the right play or the good play. It's about making the super home run play like everywhere, because you got to hit in a lot of spots. Like, you're going to need crazy scores to win. You need crazy stacks to win. It's doable. We're right there. But a couple pieces like that didn't quite go in the right places cost me making a lot of money. But I'll take a small profit for another week. And, again, excited about the Dodgers and excited for this next week to come.
Grant, how about it? How was your week 4? Mine kind of like Bobby. Like, I was slightly profitable, but I feel like it should have been better. Of course, I played Kamara, but I faded Kamara most of my tournaments. So mistakes were made. That did not end well. Grant, how about yourself? How did week 4 work out for you? And like as Bobby's saying, remember the old like 3x model? Like, oh, if this guy can just get me 3x and we're shooting for 150, yeah, 3x. But you were at the bottom this week, of course. The way scoring is these days, the way value was this last week on DK. Maybe it'll change, soon enough as far as the price is going to catch up with the talent. But Grant, how was your week 4, and what's your overall assessment? Is this a bad, or is this is there more points going to be scored going forward in the NFL?
Yeah, the weekend actually went pretty good for me. I made a little bit of money, not a whole lot, but I was just right there on a whole bunch of the cash lines, just 1 or 2 points out, but still managed to make money overall. So not a bad weekend. But yeah, it's ridiculous how some of my cash game teams are consistently putting up 200. And sometimes 200 is barely enough to even cash. The scoring this year is just absolutely ridiculous because of the stupid rule changes. But you still have some teams that the rule changes haven't helped at all, like the Bills or the Cardinals or even the Dolphins to some extent. Like, they're still winning, but they're not really putting up a lot of points. Just a lot of these teams like that are able to score so much more. And these teams that weren't able to score are not even able to score anything now. I think that's just bad coaching. I think it's the Jeff Fisher effect, even though it's not Jeff Fisher in a lot of these situations. So yeah, there's a lot of scoring this year.
I feel like we're past the point of blaming Jeff Fisher for anything. Like, come on.
The easiest thing to do. He's the biggest scapegoat ever because he ruined Case Keenum. He ruined Foles. He ruined Jared Goff.
All right, we don't want to mustache. There's just no reason to start off with the show with Jeff Fisher. He's a 70s porn star who was really good in the late 90s, early 2000s as a coach. Not so good for the extra 15 years that he was hired for. Let's just let it go. We don't need to talk about Jeff Fisher.
Man, you really hate Jeff Fisher. You really hate Jeff Fisher and the LA Rams.
Why were you so quick to defend Jeff Fisher?
I'm not defending him. I'm an LA Rams person, apparently. I don't know. I don't think there's any reason. This guy, what if the Titans what if that play would have gone a half yard further? Like,
he was a great coach.
It would have rewritten football history. We don't know.
He just passed him by. He's archaic. He's a dinosaur.
Of course.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to adapt. That's what it is. We're not saying he was bad early on. We're saying he does not know how to adapt.
Agreed, but there's better takes out there than talking about Jeff Fisher. That was my main point.
I was comparing current coaches that can't adapt to Jeff Fisher.
Okay, fair enough, Grant.
All right, let's
Who
get
else
on
is
to
on your
football.
Family Feud board, Bobby? It's not Jeff Fisher. Who else is who's on your Family Feud board? Now I'm curious.
Wait, I'm not defending Jeff Fisher. Who do you want me to? Wait.
So let's get this on record. Bobby thinks Jeff Fisher is one of the greatest coaches of all time.
No, I do not.
That's what I heard.
No, I do not.
We should probably get to football.
No.
To fantasy.
Yeah.
Timothy McVeigh, on the other hand, maybe. No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe.
Let's go.
We talked pre-show. We're going to backload the silliness. We're going to backload the nonsense at the end of the show. Typically, we've been revealing the answer to our question at the end of the previous podcast, on the new podcast at the beginning. We're not doing that. We're going to answer, Grant's question they always ask at the end. We're going to answer that at the end. We're going to ask a new question for you guys. And if you guys stick around long enough, you'll give yourself a shot at winning yourself a luxurious, soft, and comfy RotoGrinders t-shirt. There's a new question out there for you. And we're going to dive right in and talk football in just a second as far as this slate. But Grant, I'm told you have a rant.
Yeah, so I went out to Ballast Point Brewery over in Long Beach this weekend. Beautiful brewery, wonderful place. Worst, most ridiculous people I've seen. So first of all, I get in there and they have this little ramp going down to things. And, you're walking up a ramp or walking down a ramp and there's 2 or 3 people on the other side walking right next to each other. You generally move over to the side so that makes a little way to go through. Nope, just 3 21-year-old women taking up the entire ramp and just stand like right in front of me waiting for me to move instead of one of them moving over. That's irrelevant. I'm just angry about that. But sitting down at a table, first, 2 people next to me were doing the weirdest things with their mouths I've ever seen in my entire life. But the other 2 people to my left, they were on a first date is what I gathered because I was bored and listening. He went on a 10-minute spiel about how she reminds him of his mother, and then he repeatedly just kissed her cheek all the time, and you could just tell she was awkward about it. Like, oh, this guy is one of the worst people I've ever seen in my entire life, and I could not do anything but sit and listen to him the entire time, and that was my entire evening, was just listening to this guy until we went to go get out on light up.
As pickup lines go, or like flirting goes, Bobby, you remind me of your mother. That's like the Jeff Fisher of pickup lines. That's pretty terrible, right?
That was like that whole thing made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, you weren't sitting next to him.
I feel like sitting next to this microphone talking to you is close enough, and it was too much. That was a lot. I feel uncomfortable from your story, but yeah, appreciate it.
So awkward segue into the main slate on DraftKings this week.
Yeah, when you're saying don't tell girls they remind you of their mother.
There you go. That's the moral of the story. I think that's probably a good.
They're always great. They're always great, Grant. Dynamite all the time. That one just made me uncomfortable.
Yeah. I want you to feel what I felt.
That is the goal of this podcast. We want Bobby to feel uncomfortable, and maybe we'll get to that later on in the show. Hopefully that'll happen as well. All right. So we of course record this on a Monday night, so this is the first look, just kind of diving in. I don't know about you guys. I watched the Kansas City Denver game, a good chunk of that, and oh man, Mahomes is a lot of fun, man. Do not get hurt. He's like, it's impossible not to be a fanboy of Mahomes. That guy's ridiculous.
Don't like him.
You're a fan? Hot take?
Don't like him.
Grant, get out of here with this nonsense.
You're kidding, right?
This is the anti-Todd Gurley, just to be contrarian, just for the sake of being contrarian. You stupid idiot! Like,
wow, this got harsh.
Yeah, you're gonna go against Mahomes.
I'm just saying I don't like him. I'm allowed not to like him. I'm a Chargers fan. He's in the same division. I don't like him simply for the fact that I believe he's slightly overrated because of how Reed is so good. And when people say that quarterback is the greatest.
Okay.
Like, yeah, it's the same problem I have with Tom Brady. It's the same problem I have to an extent with Jared Goff, although he was terrible for a while, so I can give him a free pass because he had
because of Jeff Fisher.
Yeah.
So there's literally nothing you can do if you have a good in your mind. If you have a good coach, you can't do anything. And I think we actually agree on the guy we thought was the greatest quarterback ever. Like maybe
it's Peyton Manning. We all know that.
Okay, so and he ran his offense and all that stuff, but I don't understand what are these guys doing wrong? Like, just
he's not doing anything wrong. I'm not required to like him. I'm not required to like him. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I'm not required to like him.
Fair
Let's
enough.
get to football. Let's get to regular football.
Fair enough. But I called Mahomes every week on this show. You've sounded worse and worse about Mahomes. I just wanted to
Take the L on Mahomes, Grant, and get over it.
Oh, he's better than I thought. He's definitely
yell
better
on
for
Gurley
fantasy players
too.
than I thought.
Yell on Gurley.
Yeah, I do. You taking the L on RG3? Boom, bringing it back to the same thing every week. Let's go.
Yeah, but I'll also take the calls on Gurley and Mahomes when nobody.
Oh, I'll take my
Mahomes
W on
wasn't
Eckler then. I'll take my W on Eckler then.
I like
All right,
Eckler.
we're going to steer this back to the main slate.
Yes, guys, let's talk fantasy football. We're done here. Dean, first topic.
Okay, well, first topic is there's a lot of games we're not going to be talking about. Well, Chicago and Tampa, they don't play, so we're not talking about those guys. Not having a conversation about them. They're off week 5. We don't talk about the Thursday night game. Indy, New England, interesting. We're not going to talk about it. Edelman's going to be back, but we shall see how that goes down. Monday night is Washington and New Orleans. Mark Ingram expected to come back. I'm curious how that goes down. But, again, we can just kind of sort of watch. And, again, we're just tackling the main slate, and we try to focus on DraftKings as well because, hey, it's one site because we're Monday night. It's our first look. And also Dallas and Houston's a Sunday night game as well, too. So it is a smaller slate, Grant. I said to you, we'll talk about it in a second as far as the value. I guess we'll kind of get to the end. But, I don't think there's a lot of value popping. Like I was, kind of messing around trying to get a shell lineup in my first look here. Of course, there are some monster totals because, that's the NFL in 2018. You got Atlanta, Pittsburgh at 57, Oakland versus L.A., 53.5, the Rams versus Seattle. That's L.A. Well, it's the Chargers who's L.A. the first one. I forgot there's 2 L.A.s. Seattle is in a game that has a total over 50. When was the last time that happened? Miami, Cincy, 50.5. So I'm curious to get your cheapies, but just overall thought as far as this, where we looking? I
mean, you can obviously play the top price guys. A little bit interesting with Kamara's not on the slate. It's a little bit interesting. You always got Gurley, you've got Gordon, you've got McCaffrey, you've got Barkley, you got Connor in a great receiving running back spot. So you always want to get a few of those top running backs that are going to get consistent workloads on week in, week out basis. I mean, they're getting 10, 15, 20 rushes, but they're also getting 5, 10 targets pretty much on a week in, week out basis. So those are always guys you want to try and force into your lineup. I think that there is some decent value under 5K at the wide receiver and the running back position. I mean, I have to wait. It's obviously dependent on what happens later on in the week. And even Yeldon is viable at 5.6, but a lot of people could go there. But Marshawn Lynch is leading the league in rushing or close to it. He's getting 20 carries a week. He's getting 4 to 5 targets a week. He's going up against a Chargers team that is not a fantastic run team. Gruden seems to be just committed to running Marshawn Lynch on a consistent basis, and he's only 5.5K. People think he's old, so no one's going to go with him, but he's producing week in, week out. We got McCoy priced at 4.9K, who had 7 targets in the last game, so it looks like his quarterback's finally going to be throwing to him. They're probably going to be coming from behind, and it could mean a lot of work for him in the passing game. Aaron Jones or whoever is supposed to be heavily involved in that Green Bay run offense. Green Bay is giving up 32% of their total targets or opposing team targets to running backs this year. And then we have the Seattle run game of Carson or Mike Davis, depending on who's healthy. They finally got involved last week. They're going up against the Rams, who gives up a whole lot of targets to the running back. I mean, they're going to be coming from behind, strictly GPP play, but I can see them being not too bad. And then wide receivers, D.D. Westbrook's going to crush this week.
Yeah, there was a lot you laid out there. Bobby, we'll chime in and put those up on my one in a second. Bobby, chime in. What's your overall assessment of the slate? And I did want to mention, I was talking about the teams and the games that are over 50 as far as the totals as of Monday night. And we're saying Seattle's at a total that's over 50. So is Jacksonville, which, when was the last time the Jags have been at a total that has 51.5? Of course, they're playing in Kansas City. And the aforementioned Mahomes is the GOAT. Well, he's a baby GOAT, if nothing else, because the dude looks absolutely legit at this point in a small sample size. And it's going to be interesting to see. Well, and DK actually lowered the prices on Kansas City, too. But that's a really fun conversation we'll have soon enough. Bobby, what is your just kind of overview of this slate?
I think it's really interesting. I think the fact that there are some weird spots you don't look at, like Grant mentioned Westbrook. One of my biggest mistakes was I had the Ridley Boyd, but then I had Moncrief in the lineup 2 weeks ago. And I ran it back this week, and it was almost right there. But one of the biggest mistakes was not going back to that Moncrief spot too. Westbrook, Moncrief, everybody against KC should be firmly in play. the same things I all spouted out about Tampa all week on every show, if you pay attention to anything I said, it was true. I didn't want to play Trubisky, but I wanted to play everybody in a receiving spot in that game. I couldn't figure out why. Turns out because he was going to throw a million touchdowns to 75 million different receivers. You attack these spots where there's huge gaps. KC has a huge gap in the middle of the field. I think it's actually like a better spot for a possession-ish type of receiver, but I do think that's sort of like become Dede right now, which is weird. And he's got the home run ability, so I love the idea of playing like a guy like Dede at the lower tier. Mostly, I'm finding most of my love for this slate is mid-tier stuff. I'm not going extremely high, not going extremely low on most ends. I feel like you can get 25 to 35 out of so many different players and so many different price ranges these days. I don't think you need to spend it all the way up and just say, okay, I'll take my sure points if you're playing GPPs right now.
Probably my issue there with the Jacksonville receivers, and both you guys hit on Westbrook. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's a bit of whack-a-mole. And of course, they're all going to be interesting. At least one, maybe possibly two, will smash. Hit quote-unquote value. Both, all three of them are under 3K. Cole, Westbrook, Moncrief. Even Moncrief was 4.1K at Kansas City. I just don't know who's going to be the guy from week to week. Sure, it was Westbrook last week, Moncrief as well, and I think it was an off week for Cole. But Garrett, what makes you so Garrett? Did I call you Garrett? Wow, great.
Yeah,
Whoops.
You're not the first person to call me that. That's my brother's name, and my parents decided to name us all with the letter G in the beginning of our first name. And so everyone always screws it up. So you've never met my brother, or I think ever been told about my brother, but yeah, it seems
so.
For some reason,
that
that's
note,
close.
Grant, yeah, my bad. Talk about why are you guys so sure? At least it sounds like you're confident, at least as of Monday night, that Westbrook is the guy. Why is it not Cole?
I mean, it could. I'm playing Cole. I'm playing Cole because of his home run ability. I'm playing Westbrook because of his ability to potentially get a ton of targets in any given matchup. Like, this is a guy that was very heavily involved at the beginning when he came in last year. And he had 13 targets in this last game. He had 130 yards. They want to get him involved. They're going up against a team with one of the worst secondaries in terms of at least fantasy defense in the entire league. That's going to be high scoring. They're going to be forced to throw the ball. I'm not going to say you can't play any of these three guys. I'm just saying that based on what happened last week and Kansas City's deficiencies, Westbrook's the most likely guy to get the most targets, although Keelan Cole is slowly or right behind him. And Moncrief, if you want to go based off of 1 week where he got a whole lot of targets and 1 week where he was highly efficient, then yeah, you can go with him.
Bobby, you would taking this, or it's just kind of like throwing darts?
I think Moncrief is a better play than that. I mean, there's a reason he was efficient. He was wide open on every play he made this last week. He did have 9 targets against New England earlier in the season. It's not like he couldn't easily have more targets in this situation. They all deserve merit. You should give a stack in mind, like to Bortles and them. And honestly, you know what? The biggest thing I'm really learning is just because you play 2 receiving players, you don't need to play the quarterback with them anymore. Like, you really don't.
I thought that with Trubisky this week. Eggs on my face.
Well, yeah, but the problem was the eggs on our face anyway, because none of the receivers go off enough except for Gabriel for it to really be worthwhile. Like,
Allen Robinson and Gabriel combined for a huge game.
Allen Robinson, I had everywhere. He didn't
Robinson didn't do anything outside of his touchdown, basically.
He had one big play. That's it. And Allen Robinson would have been a monster play had that game stayed somewhat close. So would have all the other guys, potentially. And so who knows even how high Trubisky would have gone. And I played Trubisky at 20% or 15%.
So, Greg, you mentioned the Green Bay running backs, and I'm kind of interested here, and I think one of these guys should emerge, but I don't want to use the term three-headed monster because, like, I wouldn't say Williams is a monster. Three-headed, like a less scary version of. But there's Jones, there's Montgomery, there's Williams. If you listen to Rodgers, it sounds like he sides with Aaron Jones. He prefers Aaron Jones out there. Of course, people talk about how Rodgers is dinged and Jones isn't necessarily the best blocker, so maybe it's a little bit risky to have him out there at times. I've kind of heard that's one of the reasons why maybe he doesn't play every down. And I pulled up the old PFF, Pro Football Focus, hit up their their snap count, and none of these guys are playing like more than 40%, at least as of last week. The price is certainly interesting, Grant, and one should emerge. I feel like the most likely candidate to emerge is Jones. He seems like the most talented, and Rodgers likes him, and he's basically the GM of that team. Give me your pitch. I assume if you're going to play one, it's probably Aaron Jones.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not horribly against Montgomery. Like I already said, Detroit gives up a ton of targets to opposing running backs, and Montgomery can obviously do a whole lot out of the receiving game. He had 7 targets 2 weeks ago. He could easily end up with that versus Detroit at 3,800. If you really need to spend down on a running back, then he could be it. But I mean, like I said earlier, this is the beginning of the week. I need to look into it more, and this is just an early on podcast. But if something comes out that Jones is going to get a whole bunch of snaps, or they're going 3-headed monster, maybe I'll be more or less interested in certain guys. But I mean, Aaron Jones is just the obvious guy to probably want to go with, although that could drastically change later on in the week.
And the same deal for Seattle. Just seems kind of like a mess. Carson, of course, he didn't play last week. Penny and Davis. I thought it was reported Penny was going to start. It turned out Davis seemed to be the guy. They're all
you know that Pete Carroll's a terrible, no good, very bad liar.
Yeah, he's the second worst coach mentioned in this podcast so far. We're not done yet, but I think he's the second worst. Is that fair to say, Grant, for keeping score?
The second worst is a liar. Pete Carroll's my favorite coach of all time. I love that he's a liar. I like being lied to.
We've only mentioned 2 coaches. We've mentioned 2 coaches, and he's second by default. I was just calling it back to good old mustache Jeff. I want to tell Bobby with Jeff Fisher again for no particular reason.
Oh, Bobby, do you hate Pete Carroll because of USC?
I still respect him as a coach.
Oh, you're a UCLA guy. Never mind. Go on.
Yeah. What do you want me to say?
Yeah, but take as far as Seattle's backfield, again, it's early yet, and we don't know if Carson's going to play or not. I guess if he doesn't play, you can sort of.
I need to know if he's going to play. I played him 1,000,000% last week, just waiting to see if he was somehow healthy. Like, I'll play him, man. That's the answer. I was annoyed. I wanted to have some shares last week. This is obviously not a good matchup. But if you're going to get these many touches and you're this price and you're not going to be owned, yes, just give it all to me.
Yeah, and Grant, you mentioned beast mode, Marshawn Lynch. I just, I want my running backs to catch the ball. And granted, he is catching the ball more this year than I think he has in previous seasons, which is, not saying a lot. But, he's another guy that's just not on the field enough. They ran 92 plays last week because they were in overtime, right? Oakland, I believe they were. Yeah, they were in overtime versus Cleveland. Of the 92 plays, he was on the field for 50 of 92. That's fine, I guess.
Yeah, it's not like he's averaging like 20 rushing attempts the last 3 weeks and has 2 catches in every single game this season. Yeah, you're right. Not like he's leading the league.
2 is good? 2 is acceptable?
I mean, at 5,500 when he's getting 20 rushing attempts too, yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
They're not like Kevin Coleman type of 2s. These are like little dump-off nonsense type of 2s.
I mean, these aren't big plays. He's gotten more targets every single week than Kareem Hunt.
Oh, boy. Bobby, that's your trigger because you went on a whole rant before the show about Kareem Hunt.
Grant, do you want to play –
I'm on the Kareem Hunt team. Why do you think I'm against it?
Against Kareem Hunt this week because I will give you –
Wait, okay, yeah, apparently we're going in the mid-tier. Our bold calls are already set.
And by the way, there's another guy just above him who I prefer just as much as Hunt. This is a ridiculous argument. Like, don't play Marshawn Lynch this week.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, who's that guy?
It's David Johnson. We all know it's David Johnson. We talk about it every week.
David Johnson.
Yeah, it's clearly David Johnson. David Johnson's got to
and Tevin Coleman.
No, Freeman.
No, it's not. No, well, Freeman's coming back. No, who wants Coleman?
You guys are laughing. You're making fun of David Johnson last week.
I was on your team. I love David Johnson every week.
Last week. Of course, I was on David Johnson.
All right, well then get out of here.
He was fine. He wasn't.
Get out of here. Oh, I'm wrong. Just get out of here, guys.
Get out of here.
All right, we need to stop arguing. Yeah, David Johnson. Bobby, go ahead and tell us why David Johnson might be the best play on the slate.
This is like a game Arizona is probably going to contend or potentially win. It's not that I think their defense is so bad. I think they realize they have to get the ball to DJ more often. He's way too cheap. Just the number of possessions they'll have is going to be way up from most of the games because they're not going to be playing strictly from behind, trying to isolate where they have to deal with like double coverage on him. I feel like you're going to be able to see the field open up a little bit more for David Johnson. He's 6,300. If the ownership gets too crazy, for sure, jump off. Like, there's every reason to.
No one's going to be – people aren't going to play him.
But when they don't, like, you jump on – there's a 30 to 45 fantasy point game coming. And if you get that at less than 10% and you just lock it in, I think, like, honestly, like, you can make money if you just lock David Johnson in until he's above, like, 7,500. It's just too cheap. It's way too cheap. And the matchup is good, actually. Even if it's not, like, they're going to give him the ball more and more, especially as they're using a new quarterback. Just give, like, 6,300, way too cheap.
Yeah, 25 touches for 6.3K of David Johnson. I'm in on it. I understand his team's not very good. His teammates, are not very good. They can, the defense can certainly key in on him. But, I'm a volume guy. And also, he's super, super talented. If he gets 25 touches at 6.3K, I'm in. Grant, let's talk about if – I don't know, sure. If we're – let's talk about this Kansas City-Jacksonville game, right, which is kind of wonky. Like the biggest offense versus the best defense. And DK, what they do, Grant, is they tempt you. They tempt you with prices. Kareem Hunt is 5.8K. At receiver, Tyreek, the freak, he's 6.9K. And at quarterback, Mahomes is 6.2K. What is like the 7th or 8th listed quarterback and it's a small slate. Are you tempted?
I mean, I'm tempted. I don't know how much I'll actually end up going in on it. I think Kareem Hunt's the guy that really interests me most, but they were good. They weren't great versus Denver tonight. We kind of saw them slow down a little bit. They still put up 27 points, but they were definitely not nearly as potent as they were the prior 2 weeks. Jacksonville's a tough team, but Vegas is pretty sharp most of the time. So they got this over-under set pretty high. I think it's one of those spots where I'm going to end up game stacking a lot. I'll end up with a whole lot of Bortles. I'll end up with a whole lot of Mahomes, Dede, Hill, Hunt, Cole, all mixed in together. But the main thing is that Mahomes is spreading out the ball still a decent amount. I don't know if I can rely on Hill every single week, and especially against a good defense. I'm going to have to look into a little bit more this week to see how much they actually give up big plays. Hill at 6.9, I think, is probably one of the worst plays because I think people are still going to play him. And there's still a decent chance he doesn't go off just because of how much Mahomes is going to spread out the ball here. But, yeah, this entire game is just going to be beautiful in terms of fantasy points per dollar because of everyone's price being so low here.
Yeah, we don't know about Watkins. Watkins left the game on Monday night and did not come back. I think it was a hamstring. Of course, the prices on DraftKings are already set before that game even plays. So maybe there's somebody interesting will pop up as a cheapie on Kansas City. Nobody really, like you said, it was spread out a fair amount as far as, Mahomes. Kelsey had a big night, 7 for 78. I think he was targeted a fair amount too. I feel like he wasn't that efficient as far as just targets. Tyreek had 9 catches for what it's worth. Just for 54 yards, he didn't get loose in the secondary. But he's always in play for tournaments just because of his speed. What's your thought here, Bobby? And I do want to bring Bortles into the conversation. Quarterbacks are super, super condensed on DK as far as the asking price. Big Ben Roethlisberger, 6.9K. We'll talk about the game in a second because that is a total of 57 or so. Atlanta's shooting out pretty much every single game. The prices are super condensed. Mahomes is 6.2. Bortles is 5.5. Are we in on Bortles combat? Talk about that, but first talk about your thoughts on Kansas City, Bobby.
Wait, talk about my thoughts on Kansas City?
Yeah.
I don't really – I want Kareem Hunt at 58. I will take some shots on Tyreek Hill, and then if Watkins is out, I will decide which of those other receivers I'm going to try and figure out is getting more reps and will play more, and I will go with one of those, maybe 2 of them, in different spots. I believe in attacking these teams that play fast and do what they do, especially on the road. I think that Bortles is fine, but I'm more interested in the receivers. I'll take shots on the receivers being cheap. I don't need to take shots on a cheap quarterback. There's a lot of quarterbacks in the 5,000 to 6,000 range that are going to give you the same upside. Bortles is fine. I think you've always been supposed to, especially if you're double stacking receivers, play them with your quarterback. I don't think you have to do that anymore. I think it's a different game now. So I just think yes, that's fine. But I like the I like the receivers, especially Westbrook, Moncrief. I would put Cole as the last one. I think he'll be more popular, and I actually think he's probably a worse play than the other two. But I like his talent. I like Westbrook's the most, but I think Moncrief is the one they trust if they actually need it. So just figure that out based on how you feel the game will play.
But, like, why wouldn't you stack Bortles? Like, I'm just going through right now. Bortles, Westbrook, Moncrief. You have those three guys on there.
Because is he really going to be the highest, like, scoring quarterback?
So he doesn't need to be the highest scoring.
Okay, so fine. So there was nothing wrong this last week with playing Deshaun Watson like I did so much. But playing Mitchell Trubisky with the same lineups obviously would have been better.
And Mitchell Trubisky was priced basically where Blake Bortles is priced right now. Gabriel and Allen are pretty much the same price together as Cole.
My point is you're not saving anything by going to Bortles. That was my point of why you wouldn't. You don't.
You're buying yourself correlation.
You're saving a huge amount of money down to $5,500.
You're not saving a huge amount of money from anybody. Literally from anybody.
When you're pairing Bortles, Cole, and Westbrook together, you are saving.
Like if you ask me who's going to score more fantasy points tomorrow, Blake Bortles or Cam Newton. Cam Newton's going to score more or on Sunday. Cam Newton will score more fantasy points a huge percentage of the time. It's yes, Bortles, but even his upside. Even that's somewhat capped. Like, I just don't feel like this is –
he had 38 earlier on this year.
He's going to be popular, too. You got to factor that in.
He's not going to be that popular. People still won't play Blake Bortles nearly enough. Probably going to be popular.
He was like the second most owned quarterback like 2 weeks ago against Tennessee.
I'll say this about Bortles. Depending on how value works out as far as the week, I think he might be the cash game quarterback at 5,500.
Yeah, that's ridiculous in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, it's not like he can run.
You're right, it'll happen, but there's a million other guys, and the savings are so minuscule. They're so minuscule. Just play the safe guys. Just play the guys you know you got it. If you're going to play.
The tricky part, though, is if you
play Mahomes. Play Mahomes at 700 more, even against Jacksonville. Play Mahomes. You want to bet that Mahomes doesn't have more fantasy points than Blake Bortles? Come on.
I love it all. I love both options.
I mean, we're going to play arguably the greatest quarterback right now instead of the greatest quarterback right now, which is Blake Bortles. I don't find it plausible for 700 less.
Are you guys buying Matt Ryan as a thing? Is this a resurgence? Is this for real?
I mean, he finally has enough. He's kind of always had weapons, but he was good a few years ago. He was very efficient a few years ago. And I think a little bit of this has to do with Freeman being out and him less reliant on the running game. But he has been just throwing out of his mind and against some almost decent defenses for the last 3 weeks. He has 3 options to go to now for his wide receiving game. And yes, he's for real. I think he's one of those guys that greatly benefits because of the rule changes, because for some reason these good offenses seem to be benefiting much, much more. But I don't know if he's worth a $6.6K price tag when I could go with Phillip Rivers. I could go with Roethlisberger. But, I mean, the Pittsburgh defense has been just shredded a lot of times this season by pretty much any quarterback. So there's definitely merit to playing Ryan. I just don't know if I will.
Yeah, Ryan crushed New Orleans. He crushed Cincinnati. The emergence of Ridley. I'm not rostering Ridley. I'm still looking at his snap count. I'm looking at his targets, and I'm like, this is just not repeatable. And it was repeatable last week. He didn't get 3 touchdowns. He got 2. Of course, Julio, status quo, did not score once again. Bobby, what's your assessment? And just kind of bring Pittsburgh into this game, too, because, we're looking at a total of 57. Pittsburgh's favored by 3. Vegas is like their team total is basically just under 30. And we know about, receiving running backs against Atlanta. James Conner really hasn't had this monster game outside of week 1. Is this a bounce back game for Conner? What is your thought as far as this game? I
do like Conner. I think it's hilarious that you just said, do we think that Matt Ryan, what do we believe in the research? Matt Ryan is a great quarterback, has always been, never really stopped being. Has a terrible. It was kind of pedestrian last year, though. And also, his numbers are last year. The year after he won the MVP and should have won the Super Bowl, if not for his team defense, play calling, coaches, and everything costing him the Super Bowl. This guy didn't do anything. And I used to be the biggest Matt Ryan won't win anything big because I really thought there was something. The guy's a great quarterback, so nothing has changed. He's great. He's got great weapons. I like him in this spot. I like this whole game. Like, this is a great game stacking spot, in my opinion. It's a really important game to both teams, obviously. They both can light it up on the scoreboard. Obviously, being in Pittsburgh should be different for Atlanta, who's mostly played their season so far at home and Dome. But I love every part of this game right now. Early on, I'm looking into the two obvious guys and seeing how many people are going to be able to figure out how to fit them into both their lineups. And can they go off enough to where it will matter? I think this is one of those weeks where maybe they can. And you could see like 80 combined points from two receivers or something like that in this game.
Grant, who do you think the two most obvious guys are according to Bobby? Because I feel like they're two different guys.
I didn't say the two most obvious. I said the two guys who are the best receivers. The most obvious is a different thing. If you want to take a
I must have misunderstood.
And the guy who's the hot hand, excuse me, what have you done for me lately, Dean?
I'm not. I'm stuck. I have my
two best receivers in this game.
I
can't argue who the two best receivers in this game are. That's a crazy argument.
Yeah, it's clearly Juju and Antonio Brown. Julio's a pedestrian wide receiver. Wait, are you going to say that Ridley's one of the two best wide receivers in this game?
Get out of here, Grant. Get out of here. Julio Jones is horrible week. He goes 9 for 173. Like, what's this guy supposed to do?
All that matters for QBs is wins, and all that matters for receivers is touchdowns.
He just was in the Super Bowl like 2 years ago. Wait, what?
I just think that if you're going to quote Julio's stats from last week, it should be noted that he caught a 60-yard bomb that was like 10 yards in front of the end zone. Nobody cared. It didn't matter. So knock off 60 yards. That didn't count. It happened. It counted, but it didn't count. So he didn't necessarily have this great smash game. He was fun.
Hey, Grant, AJ Green is 14th amongst receivers going tomorrow. You got to bet. Got to be in the top 8.
Oh, we had to bet Julio Jones versus AJ Green, and I think can't remember who you had.
I'm crushing you on that one.
I mean, not really. I had 15 extra points. AJ Green's not far behind him.
What do you mean? How do you have 15 extra points?
Wait, I had plus 25, I think, with you, and plus 50.
No, you guys are referencing something from like a month ago. Nobody knows.
Get out of here, Greg.
Oh, well, we'll figure it out at the end of the season when we go back and re-listen to it.
No victory laps like at the quarter pole.
But, Dean, are you using anyone from this game? Who's your favorite targets from the game? Obviously, Brown, Jones, and Juju, and really are all on the board. Who are you using?
My first thought is I don't know how much money I have to play the studs in this game. I am kind of interested in Connor at 7.5K. This is the player I never play, but the price is kind of interesting. Sanu at 4K, if I need to save some salary, never play Sanu. I'd never play this guy. There's nothing sexy about Sanu. He's not a guy who comes with a ton of upside, but if you're going to buy yourself like 8 or 9 targets in the game that has the highest total for 4K and you're desperate for salary, and again, this is Monday night, and as of right now, I don't see any great value plays out there per se. Things may change as the week progresses, but Sanu is a guy I'm like begrudgingly considering. How about yourself, Grant? Because this is one of those games where you feel like you should have somebody. And I love Juju's awesome. Brown's awesome. Julio for sure is great. I just don't know if I'm going to be able to spend up with those guys.
I mean, the best – we haven't even mentioned the best play of the entire game by a pretty decent margin, and that is McDonald. Vance McDonald at 3,700. Vance McDonald is one of the best receiving tight ends in the NFL. Just look at his last 4 games played. What is he averaging? Like 20, 25 points, something like that? No?
He's only played 2 weeks this year. He's been good, and it's a nice way to get cheap. A cheap piece of a game that has a high total in a position that tight end is an absolute disaster. It's really, really ugly. And of course, Gronk is on the slate. Not that it matters. We got Kelsey against Jacksonville, which for sure he's always in play because he's Kelsey. But just the tight end position, Walker, we lost him for the season. Eifert, that brutal injury last week. Bobby, this is about as bad as we've seen tight end in a while, at least for me. There's not a lot out there. I kind of scoured through tight ends, and Grant's right. I think McDonald might be somewhat popular this week, if only by default, if no other reason.
Yeah, I don't mind it. It depends on what we hear from Cincy also. We know Dalton likes to use his tight ends. I'm with the – I just don't like the splitting with Jesse James. It scares me. It always scares me the other tight end could catch multiple touchdowns. But there is really not a lot hardly anything to like or love. I played a lot of double tight end lineups this last week, and I think it was a good strategy overall. I think that if things would have been different also, because one guy I had like almost 50% of was help me out, who we just said, who went out for
Well, Kittle had a big week. I'm not sure if you had any. Kittle, Cook had a nice week as well. He's in play too.
The guy who went out for Cincinnati, help me out.
Eifert.
Well, Eifert had that. He caught a touchdown, and then he
was off to a great start. Yeah, but I had a lot of him with Cook. I had a lot of him even with Ebron. But like I just tried to play like some even him with Jimmy Graham. Like it didn't quite work out, but like the idea I think was okay. This is not that week. Like it's tough.
You think Uzomah can get some run there? You talked about Dalton going to tight ends. Like Uzomah might be interesting at 2.9. I don't know. I mean, I'm not at the prospect of rostering Uzomah, but it's thin out there. It's really
who's going to get the run for Cincinnati, and then I definitely would take shots. Everybody else, I feel like it's just somewhat gambling, but the truth is like Kelsey is really cheap. Like. Just play him. Like maybe we just pay up at tight end.
Yeah, especially if Watkins is out.
Guys, there's a minimum price tight end that's great this week, or great play this week.
At 2.5 on DK, who do you have for us?
Yeah, well, new phone who Disley is out. So Nick Van Ez is going to be taking over the reins, I think. He's a semi-talented guy. He's going up against the Rams. They're probably going to be coming from behind. The Rams give up a whole bunch of targets over the middle to tight ends. Russell Wilson seems to have a connection with pretty much any tight end he throw into his offense. We saw what Luke Wilson did at times last year. Saw what Jimmy Graham did. We saw what he immediately started doing with Disley. Without Disley there in the offense, Van Ness can be in for a huge role going up against a team that should give up a whole bunch of points to the position. So at 2.5K, yeah, you can roll with him there.
Okay. I'm willing to listen. I'm going to say
way too bold for.
I don't have a strong
take. Bold slate for me, like way too bold. Like on a small slate, sure, but like not on this slate for me.
No. Van Ness is going to outscore. Trying to think of a name. Is he going to outscore? We're sure going to outscore Greg Olsen, but probably going to outscore George Kittle.
Well,
I'm not playing George Kittle, but I don't think you're right about that either.
Going to outscore Jared Cook, who's not even a good tight end. He's not even doing well this year.
He's not even doing well this year? Did you really just say that?
Yeah. Bobby, you need to learn to understand sarcasm. You were so defeated by that.
This guy is just destroying the league.
I'm taking a quick peek here. I just pulled up at the fly. But that guy, he was on what? He was 54 of 66 snaps last week, and looks like he ran some routes. So, okay. I mean, I'm willing to listen, Grant, and I'm going to say it's going to do some.
No, it's not the worst idea in the world. It's just like, I mean, maybe there's not. Like, I'm looking at tight end. Maybe there's really not a better option. Every week there's been better options.
Ertz is a great option. Ertz is a fantastic option. I mean, he's a little bit worse with a lot of guys back in there, but you're getting a guy that has double-digit targets every single week. Cook's been destroying. Like, there are good – and, again, Vance McDonald's going to crush this week. Also, Njoku with Baker at the helm is going to be a whole lot better going up against a defense that has been statistically terrible versus the tight end for a long period of time. So there are definitely a lot of options. And if you really need to save some money to spend up because there is less value this week, there is going to be less of a clear-cut lineup, then spending down a tight end on Van Ness could end up very well for you guys.
Well, that's the thing, Grant. If you have Ertz on your team, how are you going to spend up on a guy – like, if you have one big spend this week, I feel like it's either Gurley or Gordon. That's sort of my first take. Gurley against Seattle. He crushed that team last year. Melvin just a do-it-all back against Oakland, a defense that's an absolute disaster. Do you want to take, if you have all the money in the world? Of course, I don't think you can roster them both. I suppose there's a way to do it, but it's just a huge detriment to the rest of your team. One big spend, Grant, or if you want to go on the board, feel free to go off the board. Is it Gurley or is it Gordon for you?
It's Gurley. I don't fudge with Gordon with Eckler in the offense. He still ends up doing well very often, and I'm not going to argue with playing Gordon. It's just a guy that I generally don't go out of my way to roster, which has bit me in the tush quite a bit. But I mean, even McCaffrey, I mean, he's still going to get tons of targets. He can still break off a big run for a touchdown anytime, and with the rest of everything in his floor, I mean, it's not a bad idea. But I'm just creating a lineup right now with both Ertz, Gurley, and Melvin Gordon in my lineup to see if it works.
You're going to have some Bortles, I think, in your life. Maybe some Beathard.
I didn't even think about throwing Bortles in there. Thank you for reminding me of that.
You need some real cheapies to make that work for sure. What's your take on that, Bobby, as far as big spends at running back? Who's your favorite?
As of right now, I'm trying to find a way not to play either of high-price, expensive running backs that are just paying off their salary most of the weeks. But Gurley has had, in my opinion, down weeks every week just because their offense is so loaded. You could see a 45, 50-point game from this guy any week. I think it's more likely for him than Gordon. I think Eckler still takes a good enough amount of the overall shares for Gordon at that price. I'm not crazy about McCaffrey and Barkley at those prices in that matchup. So I guess I'm like into James Conner, Todd Gurley, and otherwise I'm mostly spending down more like David Johnson, more like Kareem Hunt is where I'm headed.
What if Fournette doesn't play? You on Yeldon at 5.6K?
I'll probably do a little bit, but I'm not going to like jump all over it. It's not like a smash spot. Like he's not an every down pounded back who's also going to combine to, spread it out and go on the outside. He's going to mostly be your pass catching back that you use who will get a few carries between the tackles. Maybe we'll squeeze one in. Yes, it could be a big play, but I'm not going to, a big score point per dollar, but I'm not going to go for it. I think he has to break 2 big plays in order for that to happen. And even, with high ownership, even without Fournette, I think it's too high a price actually.
What's your take? But great, you said there's some cheapies you like. Are those guys kind of came out throughout the show organically, or is there still a couple you're keeping in your back pocket?
No, there's still plenty of guys that are cheap. I haven't even gotten to all the cheap guys. I mean, Fitz is at 4.7K. He's going up against a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad San Francisco defense. Christian Kirk.
Do you trust he's healthy?
No, if he's not healthy, if you don't want to play Fitz, you have to assume that they're going to do something. Like they only have an 18 implied total, but they're going to still be passing a lot. Targets are still going to be there. And if you're not, you have to, I think you really should be playing Fitz or Kirk or David Johnson, any one of your lamps. I mean, Kirk's been doing decent this season. He's the clear number 2 guy for this team. He had 6 targets last week, and let me check what he had before that. Not actually sure. I don't remember off the top of my head. But he's a guy that, like, if you're really looking for some value, he is the cheapest available option that is viable and that has potential for 20 points. Like, realistically, he could end up with 20 points.
I was waiting for your Mike Williams take. That's your boy, isn't it?
What is Mike Williams? I mean, he's priced at 4.2, and he crushed me last week. Still love him. Also, Higgins. Jimmy Smith is coming back, right, this week after a suspension. So I'm guessing he'll end up shadowing either Callaway or Landry more, leaving some more targets for Higgins, who Baker's airing the ball out and spreading the ball around. Higgins can be involved in the game a lot more. He has a propensity to do that every once in a while just to completely screw me over for some reason. But he's still gotten 5 targets twice this season. He's still a guy that could end up with a touchdown. He's still a guy that is priced at 3.5K on a week where, I mean, unless you want to go with Treadwell or Martavius Bryant and buy into the targets they got last week. I mean, I might buy into Treadwell. Treadwell's still a talented guy. If he could just catch a ball, he'd be good. But that's apparently a real problem for him. But that's not important.
Bryant.
Yeah. Well, we've seen Bryant go off for big games occasionally. My problem with him is more his coach being trash. But he got his first win.
Bobby, you have any TVs for us?
Man, it's hard. We're talking about all positions or wide receiver?
Anything. Surprise me.
He was naming wide receivers. We already mentioned a little bit the Jacksonville guys. I think that's a way to get cheap value with potential upside. I think people won't go back to the well on guys like Callaway. Tough matchup, but still. Again, Moncrief, another Jacksonville guy. I liked your call on Sanu earlier. I don't think that Willie Snead is the worst play in the world. I know that sounds nuts. But Willie Snead is getting consistent targets and it should at least be looked at here. I know that sounds crazy, but nobody who jumps out really low price. It's going to seem like an obvious spot probably later in the week, but I don't really know what that is, and I don't want to speculate on some things that could or could not happen. I don't think Corey Grant is going to go crazy for Jacksonville. He is part of what I was worried about taking away from Yeldon, and I just don't think it's all going to go to Yeldon. I still think Ty Montgomery might have a big game in him. I just want to throw that out there. I don't know.
I said that earlier.
Yeah, without Adams, I'm sorry, without Cobb.
I think Allison's the best play. If he's cleared from concussion, he was on his way to a big day until he exited, but he's only 5.1K now, 11 targets, just missed a touchdown if you're watching that game as well.
Yeah. He'll get some ownership, though, this week, I think.
On the carpet, I like that.
Costs absolutely nothing.
One of my favorite big spend receivers. Dude, if you want to see a beautiful game log, look at Adam Thielen. It's just ridiculous.
Oh, I called that one. I called Adam Thielen, Grant. Remember your argument?
Oh, yeah, you called a guy that was one of the top wide receivers last year. Top wide receiver this year?
Laughed at
quarterback?
him ahead of A.J. Green. You laughed at it.
I called Kamara was going to be good this year. I'm on it. I nailed that one. Adam Thielen, no less than 12 targets, no less than 102 yards. Dude gets the bonus on DK every single week. And against Philly, you're more likely to be passing the ball successfully than running the ball successfully. He is priced up a bit at 7.7K, but it feels like a really, really strong cash game play if you can get there. Of course, he's going to play for tournaments as well. Is that one of your favorite big spends at receiver, Grants, or is there somebody else you want to talk about?
I mean, he's one of the best big spins at wide receiver. He's one of the better big spins pretty much every single week. I don't like mine Jarvis Landry at slightly less. I mean, he's still going up against he's in a tough matchup, but the guy's going to get 10, 12, 15 targets every single week. And 6.8K, I feel like it's still a little bit too low for him. Plus, Jimmy Smith has some rust on him. But yeah, I don't really want to spend up for a lot of these high-priced wide receivers here. So I'm spending up at running back if I'm spending up at anything, because you still have Cooper Kupp or any one of the Rams wide receivers that are likely to put up a whole lot of points here. You got Corey Davis getting 10, 15 targets every single week. You have Boyd that's still probably a little bit underpriced, considering he's just stealing all the targets from A.J. Green, crushing every week. You got Ridley. There's a lot of guys in the mid-tier, even John Brown going up against Cleveland. There's a lot of guys in the mid-tier that are more not as likely to go for 30 points, but fairly likely to go for 20, 25. So with how high scoring everything is, I don't think you need to pay up at wide receiver a lot of times.
Yeah, that's kind of sort of where I'm at. That's where I was at last week. And again, was just kind of spend up with the big boy running backs and kind of get the mid-tier receivers. And first look, that's kind of sort of where I'm at right now. But I'm not – well, Grant, you talked about building a shell lineup. I'm building a shell lineup as we're going throughout the show. And of course,
I already did.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm curious to hear it. We'll hear it in a second. I haven't completed mine just yet, but you cannot reveal – we're going to follow the DK guidelines. Cannot give the last two spots. But I'm curious. What do you have right now, Grant?
I'm going to take the two guys out that I was likely to take out anyways. I was just trying to force Melvin Gordon into a lineup there with Gurley. But right now, Bortles, Gurley, Ridley, Westbrook, Kirk, Ertz, and the 49ers. D. I didn't really care about the D, honestly. And D doesn't matter.
What do you think of that lineup, Bobby?
I like it. I mean, I like my lineup better, but I think you read too many names.
I left two open.
I think you read too many, my friend.
I left two open.
I heard is this the defense you left open? What else do you leave open?
I didn't leave the defense open. I left open the flex and RB2.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Bobby, see that lineup and raise it. And did you say you have one as well you're working on? It sounds like you're tinkering as well.
I'm tinkering, but I'm leaving out my quarterback for right now.
Well, leave out two spots. I'll tell you what I have. I'm just kind of messing around. I left out a receiver and a defense, and I have 3.4 left. So I need a super cheap receiver with a reasonably priced, so I can get a punt defense as well. But this is just my first look, just kind of messing around on the fly, throughout the conversation. I put Bortles in at quarterback for fun. Why not?
Because he's the best quarterback in the league.
Best nickname, Bortles Combat. UCF represent. Connor, Melvin Gordon, the third, not the second or the fourth. Geronimo Allison, I like him, assuming that we're assuming that Cobb's not playing. That's under the assumption that Cobb's not playing, and assuming Allison's back from his concussion. Talked about Thielen, and his floor is absolutely beautiful. I trusted Grant, which is always a risky proposition, but I threw Vanette in there to open up some salary.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not married to this lineup, but so be it. That's where we're at. And then David Johnson in the flex, 3.4K for a defense and a wide receiver. How about that, Bobby? Raise it. See it and raise it.
I like it. So I do have a quarterback now.
Don't read the quarterback, Bobby. Leave 2 spots open.
My receivers are Julio Jones, Antonio Brown. My tight end is Vance McDonald, along with Grant.
Yeah.
I'm playing David Johnson and Kareem Hunt, and I'm playing Ty Montgomery.
Ooh.
I like it. This guy gets football.
Don't owe me Ty Montgomery. This is a play, man.
I just agreed with you.
I'm with you, Grant. I appreciate that. I was talking to Dean.
Yeah, screw you, Dean. Screw you, big dummy.
Well, if I'm going to play one of those guys in the Packers, it's Jones over Montgomery. That's my first thought. But I suppose Montgomery can get loose too. But I just, I need volume, and obviously none of those guys are getting the volume necessarily, at least as of this moment. But who knows how it's going to go going forward. We're going to get into our silliness and our nonsense in just a few minutes, of course. But let's see. Our biggest game stack. Who jumps off the board is your favorite game? We haven't talked much about that Ram game. Or we haven't really talked much about Cincinnati versus Miami. That's worth talking about too, I suppose. But, again, this is the First Look podcast. You guys are going to hear many podcasts throughout the week. Cincinnati is kind of interesting. Gio Bernard, the situation there with Bernard and Mixon. Mixon probably coming back. If he doesn't, of course, Bernard's super interesting. It is worth noting that Bernard lost a lot of snaps last week to the backup. Just kind of keep an eye on that as well. Greg, if you have any thoughts as far as the Rams, Seattle, or Miami, Cincinnati, or just your favorite game stack, favorite correlation, throw something out there.
I mean, off the board game stack is going to be Arizona and San Fran. Neither defenses are too great. Both these quarterbacks are cheap. There's a lot of cheap pieces all around it. So, I mean, if you're expecting some points to be scored here, then you're going to get points from really cheap guys. So all the prices are right. I like Dave Johnson. I like Kirk. I like Kittle. I really like the Arizona side more. I'm not going to be terribly opposed to using a quarterback from this game. They end up paying off, but the only problem is I can pay up slightly more for Bortles. Also, yeah, Jacksonville, Kansas State, fantastic game stack.
Bobby, jump in here.
Yeah, it's Atlanta and Pittsburgh for me. Hammer it and pray. This game has money written all over it everywhere. I love the Sanu call you made earlier. He's a guy I played this last couple weeks a bunch. He's still technically the number 2 receiver. Now, Calvin Ridley's so much more talented, and they'll try and get him involved. So, yeah, he's going to have bigger games. But if things break Sanu's way, you could be looking at a multi-touchdown guy who could get 100 yards in a game. So I really like him as a value, and I really like that game stack.
I'm throwing out Amari Cooper. Is going to be kind of interesting, I think, for tournaments at 5.6K. I know nobody likes to play Amari Cooper outside of Ram, right? And I don't know if he's playing him these days. But, I don't know. If Oakland's going to hang tight, they're going to play some catch-up, I think he'd be kind of interesting as a tournament play. All right, Grant, let's address – I guess we should address our T-shirt giveaway, right?
Oh, yeah. I should probably look up. Yeah, so if you guys don't remember, it was best roles for Danny DeVito to be the guy in there, which, by the way, you know that I think – who was it? Tim? No. Who's the guy from Castlewood? Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks, I think, was supposed to be whatever that guy's name is from Shawshank Redemption. Would have been
Tim Robbins?
Yeah, but that was one of the options here. We had like Danny DeVito in Training Day, Danny DeVito as a Munchkin, Danny DeVito as Tony Montana, Danny DeVito as Tom Cruise scene from Top Gun, or Keanu Reeves from The Matrix. That just said he wishes he was a twin of Arnold. That was already done. Let's see, other good one, Ryan Gosling from The Notebook, which I definitely would have cried for different reasons if Danny DeVito was Ryan Gosling. Notebook. And then Danny DeVito giving the greed is good speech in Wall Street. I mean, he basically did that in It's Always Sunny. Yeah, that's what he plays in It's Always Sunny, so that's just no different. I don't know. What's your favorite, Bobby?
Of all those, I don't know. I like the ones you mentioned. Let's just go with that.
Pick one. Yeah, I like the ones you mentioned. You mentioned all of them. I like them.
You just named like 74 things. That's too hard.
How many T-shirts do you want to give out, Bobby?
I think I'm just going with
we gotta pick one. We got to pick one winner. Is there one that stands out for you, Bobby?
That was too many in a row. It was too many things.
All right. I'll pick two. I'll pick three for you to pick. Danny
Okay,
DeVito
there you
as
go.
Rocky, Danny DeVito as Denzel from Training Day, and Danny DeVito as Ryan Gosling from The Notebook.
The Notebook.
Yeah. I'd like to see him in this serious romantic role as
It's about time.
Yeah, he plays a perfect celebrity hunk.
It's way overdue.
Yeah.
I feel like he's probably played a romantic role at some point in his career, hasn't he? I would imagine he has.
He played the Penguin in that one
Yes.
Batman. He was Penguin.
Well, yeah. Oswald Cobblepot, and he bit the dude's nose. Yeah. I don't think that was a romantic comedy, Batman.
Remember
I was
Stone? He was sort of like dating that one girl. Nah, it's just still. No, you're right. He's never been a romantic comedy role, I don't think. Oh, Twins, kind of.
Yeah. No, that's not it at all.
Kind of, sort of, I suppose. We're going to knock out our question in just a second. The question that you guys are going to answer. Okay, so when this gets posted at RotoGrinders, there's a comment section at the bottom. Feel free to comment anything you'd like. But if you answer our question the best, and if Bobby likes it the most when Grant knocks it down to 3 options, you're going to win yourself a RotoGrinders t-shirt as well. The winner, the dude that put the notebook in there, hit me up on the old Twitter machine and slide to my DMs, and I'll make sure you have a t-shirt sent out your way. Bobby,
it was musky motivated.
There you go.
Good
Congratulations. So, Bobby, what's our bold take this week? Because, Grant, we have to reprimand Bobby. We're running a little bit long in the pod this week.
I think there's just because there's a pertinent thing that happened last week that I think just leads him to his reprimand tweet. And that's just saying that Nickelback for life is the guy that won the Millie Maker. So, Bobby, you, of course, have to tweet out that so happy to see a fellow Nickelback fan win the Millie Maker. Love it love it when we do well. Nickelback for life.
Bobby, you're good with that? That's Bobby's punishment now, Grant. We should call it out.
Also, he lost 2 weeks in a row, and he only did one tweet, and he forgot it until Sunday or Saturday.
I'm looking outside of my downtown place, and I'm just debating whether or not to jump out this window. Like,
is it that bad to be associated with Nickelback?
I know your place in downtown. You jump out that window, there's a little driveway right below. So
it's just the amount of people I've found out recently who follow me on Twitter who like opinions matter to me in life. And it sucks.
They don't listen to your podcast?
Like I'm
they
okay.
know the whole thing is a podcast.
They do, but they don't have time to listen to everything I do. Like it's
we'll let you put the Absolutely Epic Early Week podcast on there, the hashtag. But being a fan of Nickelback, there are a lot worse things in life because I love
Bobby, what you can do, you're not supposed to do it, but you can do, and you've done it already once, is you can actually answer like people that comment on it and say, no, it's a prank, it's a joke, just because.
No, I don't like that rule. That's never been a rule.
You're not supposed to be doing that.
Gosh, are we supposed to call JM? What are the odds JM answers right now?
There's no way he's answering.
It's 10 o'clock at night. What time do old people go to sleep, or young people? I think he's the same age as me.
He's going through his process. He's a writer. He's going through his process.
I can text him.
Bobby, you were saying that that was I'm new to the podcast, but I thought the rule was you're not allowed to answer.
That's always been the rule.
It's complicated, and JM,
it's not complicated. It's
JM prefaced. He added. He retweeted other things. He did all the kinds of things he did.
He did not. No, he did not. We had a specific rule, and it never got broken by him, except for one time when he tweeted out that the Patriots weren't good anymore, and he lost. Yeah,
that's a real thing to say. Like, to say, like, real shit about my life, that's a different story.
We're saying you like Nickelback.
I should say at this point, if it wasn't obvious enough, the football's done. The football talk is done. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. We're almost done. We're going to step aside in just a second. We're going to give you guys the question for this week coming up to answer in the comment section. Before we do that, though, we need to get our bold takes lined up. So,
all right, so he wants Kareem Hunt. I want Marshawn Lynch. You pick another guy from that range that's a running back. You want Yeldon? You get Yeldon.
Well, I don't under the assumption that Fournette doesn't play, I think.
Under the assumption that Fournette doesn't play, which he won't. If Fournette does play, then you can have Fournette if you want.
Okay, yeah. But what if you? Yeah, okay, yeah, sure enough. If I have to modify, so be it. I'll modify the Twitter machine. But Grant, before we step aside and get out of here, give the people what is the question for Week 5. I like this question. I think it's pretty good.
Which one did we decide on? Oh, best item sold on an infomercial. Sticky Buddy is not on the list because that might be the best. But anything else is a go. I mean, there's so many great products on infomercials.
Swiffer.
Just stop giving them options.
We're not giving them answers, Bobby.
I love them. Now that I thought about it, like
Forget it.
Yeah, they're all fantastic. I mean, the best one is Chipotle Way from South Park, but that's not a thing.
Scrub Daddy.
Stop giving them answers, Bobby.
Bobby's just giving them the answers.
This is a game. You guys figure it out on your own while Bobby tells you all the answers.
So best item, now we're talking about the presentation, the comedy, unintentional comedy, or actually the functionability of the item?
It's a mix of both. And if someone picks something that's absolutely hilarious, that's no longer on the market, that was from years ago even, then I will verify that these things actually exist. But if I see something that did exist and is no longer on the market, if it was funny or it seems like something, yeah, I really want that, then it's completely up to me, because Danny DeVito would have been good in some serious roles that they were talking about. But I would with the comedy aspect, because, gosh, he would make a good Ryan Gosling in The Notebook.
I certainly have a couple of ideas in my head, but I'm like Bobby. I'm not going to throw them out. I'm not going to share. And as always, gifts are encouraged, and they're a good tiebreaker, right, Grant? Oh,
yeah, they're a great tiebreaker. I mean, the gif of Ryan Gosling kissing whatever her name was, I don't even remember who the female role is.
Rachel McAdams, have some respect.
I don't need to have any respect. The only reason I know that is because they mentioned it on It's Always Sunny while Dee was in the whatever psychiatrist's office.
We got anything else for the show, guys? We're getting out of here.
I don't know. I mean, was there anything else we were supposed to talk about? I mean, I don't think we need to talk about football.
No, I feel like
we're good.
Stop talking.
Have you ever had like an Uber driver where you ask him how this happened on the way back from Ballast Point? Like at the very beginning of the ride, I'm like, "Hey, how's your night going?" Dude shuts up for 20 minutes the entire ride.
Oh my god!
And then does not say a word. And then as soon as we're getting out of the car, the most chatty guy in the world. Thanks, guys. I really enjoyed you having here. Did you have a good night? All right, guys. What are you up to later? You have fun? I'm like, I asked him a question, and he just. Is
this a bonus Grant's rant? Is that what's happening right here? We could have saved this one for next week, but Grant, we are up against the clock. We're supposed to be in and out within an hour. I think we're over the time. So
I don't think we're over the time. Well, maybe we're over the time. I don't know. We had that pause in there, guys. We paused because my microphone messed up, but you guys didn't even notice because I'm so good at pausing.
Guess in the comment section where we actually paused. You might be able to guess it. I would say it's relatively early.
Yeah.
There's no t-shirt for that, but just for funsies. That's it. That's the show, guys. I hope you enjoyed the absolutely epic early week podcast for week 5. He's Bobby. He's Grant. I'm Dean. Thanks for listening. We're out of here.
See you, kids. Love y'all.